What do you want?
How are you?
Didn't do this one correct.
Oh, yes, you did. Very cool, though.
You want me to hold?
No, but yeah.
Good wine, guys.
Unbelievable.
I'm all done. This is it, man. I'm done.
Yes, that's good.
Okay, this is good.
It's pretty intense. Somebody had their red lights up here.
What plane are you guys in? You sit down. What did you come with?
Shows our feet are intertwined.
We were just talking to this girl, and boy, it's a psychopath. She got into putting on.
Watch them all. They're pretty good. At least three of them were.
Get the other one, take them back to the You don't need his regular.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. By all means. You've been on your feet all day. I know.
Before the big out, let me wait. I want to write that down. Maybe
So I'm going to go up to the side.
You got it? Here, I don't need it.
Oh, that was so horrible. Oh, I hate it. So like, the science is bad.
$400 a year.
Inspired by those science fiction. You know, I always wanted to be an athlete, but I knew I couldn't be an athlete, so I became here. I figured one day they're going to end up in like we want to hear of in space. I don't think That's what gets it. Yeah, so was part of the else and also a very salacious character. Next month, very big the lawsuit and actually trying to build up the thing that you're going to see happening and fighting over finally got and quite a bit of research. That's well, we don't
Everybody.
The whole town is this where we're supposed to go? No, it's a
You start off as a cover, then you write the book. See, that's a lot of
It's a top-down approach to understand this customer, right? And a lot of times, Bob tells us, we have just a vision or something like that, and then we try and say, okay, yeah, right? But if you have a system here, right? You say, hey, Rich Creek, if you're not going to have a son, okay, here's how we're going to come out of here's the money that's going down, right? That's our problem.
Big brown eyes. Terrible.
I'm guessing it's probably going to be either harder on the first one, and they have this thing yet. That's crazy.
The program will begin in about 15 minutes. Buffet lineup for less than half an hour. Christopher Morrison, are you in the house? Christopher Morrison? Christopher Morrison, I have your credit card for I'll go on a shopping spree.
I saw
Is that the camera that's streaming?
This is the camera that's streaming.
Oh,
Are you watching it?
I just
Oh, okay. Mike. Come on, sometime today.
It's kind of like watching paint dry.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay to make it. I think it's okay to make it big.
Time lapse. They went back after that and they were placing it in his head. Couldn't see it. That's the key.
What it is the way you need to survive what's on back.
Okay, good evening. Good evening. Okay, so I'd like to welcome you to the banquet ceremony. So to speak. Okay, we have two presentations this evening. One, the shorter one, is going to be on the virtual reality program that the Mars Society has launched, in which we hope to expand significantly. And the other is on the University Rover Challenge. That's the longer one. That's the star of the show. It's really an amazing thing, and it's already being replicated in Poland and India. And I hope to even replicate it at the high school level, starting in the United States. But so those two things are going to happen. And then after that, we're going to have our awards. First, some awards to Mars Society people, volunteers. And then we're going to announce the winners and give out trophies to the winners of the Red Eagle contest, the finals of which took place here this afternoon, in which there were 5 teams, one from the United States, one from India and Italy, one from France, one from Germany and Sweden, and one from Poland. Okay. Last but definitely not least. And so you'll find out who won, and then we'll talk about a few other things, and then you can go look at the moon. Okay, and Mars, that's right. Okay. And you don't even have to go to Saskatoon to do it. John Mankins the other day said that Mars was really like Saskatoon. If so, then the moon is like Devon Island. But anyway, so our first speaker will be Jim Burke, who is along with Shannon Norell, who's here somewhere. Okay, hiding behind Jim Burke, leading the development of our virtual reality program. So Jim.
So good evening, everybody. Happy 20th anniversary to the Mars Society. I'm a founder of it. So this year we started the Mars VR program, which we see as a multi-phase effort to introduce virtual reality to our public outreach activities and to our projects like the Mars Desert Research Station. And we had a successful Kickstarter in May. Our goal was to raise $25,000, and we raised $31,000. And with that money, we were able to hire some folks to professionally fly drones and scan the Mars Desert Research Station in Utah using the latest photogrammetry techniques. So one of the folks that we have on our team is probably one of the best in the world to do photogrammetry. And we've done several now iterations of scanning the terrain around the MDRS with drones. We've gotten a square mile of terrain. And so I'm going to show you our terrain model. And so this is a pretty low resolution version of what we have. What we did was we flew the drone first at 200 feet. Our goal was to get fist-sized rocks visible in the VR environment. Because what I would really like to see happen is I would like a geology person to put on a VR headset before they come out to the MDRS and plan out their EVA and plan out what they want to see when they actually get there. So there's the MDRS itself. There's the MDRS right there. So we first flew it at 200 feet. Our expert, Ben Stogan at Aero Scout in Grand Junction, Colorado, he has a company that does a lot of work for the mining industry, flies drones. He thought, well, we could do that with a 200 feet pass. So that's what we did at first in June. But then we got the results back and we're like, no, this isn't good enough. We need to do it again. We need to fly at, what are we doing now, 50 feet? 50 feet. So he's actually today doing the last one of those. He's out there today. We've taken 20,000 or so DSLR photos. We rented a LiDAR system, which is like a laser radar system. We rented that. We scanned the inside of the MDRS, and we'll show you that in a second. Do you want to mention anything else about the terrain?
Well, just kind of to put this in context, this is arguably one of the largest and most detailed models ever created using the photogrammetry and techniques that we're employing here. So yeah, I'm glad you brought up the point that we actually scanned a square mile, which took 3 days, and then we said it wasn't good enough, and we went out and scanned it again. So you know, the objective of this entire mission is to use VR as an actual scientific tool to actually do science with it, and it's not just going to be a fun toy, a fun experience. So I mean, it would be fun, but it should be realistic to the extent possible. So the goal is, like you said, to have at least softball-sized rocks visible from all angles. And there are certain parts where they're going to be occluded. You can see there's like some cliffs and things like that where you're not going to probably see underneath the rock. So we may come back in and touch that up with actual DSLR photos and stuff like that. So it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to evolve, but we can exemplify how to do real science with VR. So, you know, hopefully we can send people or send drones or robots to Mars itself and come up with scans of large expanses of land, and then direct actual humans to go explore them in greater detail. And we can all sort of look over their shoulder in VR and direct them to interesting parts. We can kind of, this is Robert Zubrin's idea last year at this conference, as far as like letting people virtually explore the terrain and find interesting objects and point them out as objectives in meat space, so to speak. So that's what I'd say, I guess.
So, yeah, absolutely. So one other thing I'll say is this is phase one. Our goal for phase one is MDRS. We want to make sure that we build a crew training simulation that the crews can use at home before they go out to the MDRS. They can hit the ground running, because every moment at MDRS is precious, just like being in space. We want them to make the most of it. So we're going to show you now our demo environment. So I'm going to.
This does not include the terrain. It's just the
inside
of the house.
This is a very early build of what we're going to do. We're planning on releasing all of this in October before the field season starts. And we will have this available to the public for free. It'll be open sourced. And we will provide a key to unlock the training content for people that pay a $30 fee on the Steam platform. But the general public will be able to make use of this for free. And we really hope that this is a great educational tool for museums and schools. We want to get the word out about what we're doing at the MDRS. So this is our demo environment, as you can see.
Yeah, I want to, this gives you a sense of scale. You can see this image, the actual terrain that we scanned, that we're still processing and stuff like that. Here's the MDRS over there. You know,
Right here.
it's a large expanse of land. And this is just the beginning. We could add other sections if we just have more. So what do you want to do?
So let's just go through the rooms one by one, start at the airlock. So this is actually my favorite room, even though it's the smallest one, because the detail. You can say, and one person said, I'm so glad this is like a realistic looking thing. It's not a science fiction thing. You can look at the cracks on the donor plaque, for example. That's how good the skin is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really like your ears.
So the way the environment works right now is this is just a demo. So we're eventually going to tie all the rooms together as they should be, but for the demo purposes today, we wanted to just have this lobby to show them all.
So I guess we go to the EVA prep room.
Let's do the EVA prep room, yeah.
All right.
So this is where all the crew members at MDRS start suiting up and putting on their simulated spacesuits.
There's the other side of the airlock.
That's the other side of the airlock.
So yeah, these are the simulated suits that you put on. So
Go a little slower, Shannon. I know you're excited. So as you can see, this scan is a 3D scan. You can look around these objects and see all of their edges. As a matter of fact, in some of the other rooms, you can actually look under the table and look at the bottom of the table. VR people that have seen this stuff are saying that this is like one of the best apps they've ever seen done in VR.
So the idea is that you have this mission. Can you guys see this? So it's a step-by-step guide, and you know it gives you indications of what to do in order. So you put on flight suit. So down here would be we still have to flesh all this out. Down here we grab the flight suit, we put it on, and that step is like complete. So and then we're gonna go put on the backpack. So we're gonna go find the backpack over here. And put it on, and now it's checked off, right?
Yep,
There we go.
checked off.
So then, et cetera, et cetera. So there'll be various missions that are built in here that you follow along, and so you practice doing a mission before you get to RS.
And we're working with Dr. Rupert to flesh out exactly what those scenarios and procedures should be so that they're extremely accurate as to what the crew members actually do.
Well, let's go to
Science Dome.
science dome, okay?
Now, bear in mind, we scanned the MDRS at the end of the last field season, so it is sort of in a bare state right now, which we wanted to do on purpose because what we can do now is we can add in 3D objects that we create to do some of the procedures. So for example, with putting on the suit, we will have a scan of the suit, and it will be an object you can actually manipulate in the environment.
It really is like
We're using an HTC Vive off-the-shelf headset, and one of the features of that allows you to teleport around in the room. Oops, happened right, Sharon.
but you can't see.
No, we can see now. It's good now.
Did everybody hear Shannon? No, all right.
So that's
Oh, let's, yeah.
That's usually not a problem for me. By the way, Shannon, there was a great thing going bing in this room bing when we were there.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about the power issues.
Okay.
Check it.
Anyway, no, everything was shut down for us to do the scan. So.
Oh, you know what it was actually, there was a CO monitor that needed a new battery.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, you can see there's a certain amount of artifacts in here that need to come in. We need to come in and scrub up. For instance, glass is not really scanned that well with photogrammetry. So we'll probably scoop these things off and clean out the models and put actual 3D models in here that you can interact with. So it's like you said, it's a work in progress as far as first round of scans, but it gives you an idea of the kind of the level of detail we have. I mean, I can see the rebar handle here, though. It's really detailed. Okay, what's next?
Let's do the green hub.
Oh.
Not supposed to look like that.
It looks kind of messy, just as a caveat here. There's some dead plants, unfortunately. That's how it was when we got out there. But we're going to clean this up. We're going to digitally remove some of the junk. We're going to add in real plants that will be part of the training procedure. And we'll work with Dr. Rupert, and she can't even look. We'll work with Dr. Rupert to really make this accurate as to what we want to have people train on.
I have to tell you guys, as we were here in June, or late June, early July, it was the hottest place I've ever been in my entire life. Because it's designed to keep, heat in, right? Oh my God.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody that we sent out there got heat stroke.
Okay.
You will be able to, not in this build.
Yeah, it'll be completely Yep.
Absolutely. You scanned everything.
Show the Matterport scan.
Yeah, I'll do that. Let's do the Matterport after we're done with this.
So next is maybe Musk Observatory.
Yes. So it's a little dark in here, but this is the Musk Observatory. This is a small observatory that we built with funds donated by the Elon Musk Foundation. This was our first observatory at the NDRS. We now have a second one that's fully robotic that can be controlled over the internet. And so this first one has now been converted to a solar observatory.
I hope you guys can see the detail of the telescope itself. It's pretty cool. It's pretty vivid.
What we like to do with the training in here is once the person learns the astronomy procedures that Peter Detterline and his team have, then they'll get to open the dome as a reward. And then the RAM. Yeah. So this is our repair and augmentation module, and Shannon's hiding her eyes again over there because there's a lot of junk in here, according to her. This is actually a Chinook helicopter that has been retrofitted. My favorite feature of this is the Phoenix rover that the NorCal chapter built. There it is. I know you guys want it back too. But yeah, you can actually, you can look under the tables here. Can you try that, Shannon?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Like, look at that, it's awesome. Look at that note tech tape to the table. There's his toothbrush.
Keeping the hammer next to the rope.
So yeah, the idea is to articulate, so you people pick up the hammer and smack on stuff, to sort of animate or make these things interactable. They set their flight conditions.
So one of the things we may do in the future is have a suit repair training scenario here. I think that was everything, yeah. So what do you guys think so far? So one of the other things we were able to do while the team was out there, we borrowed a camera from a company called Matterport. And we've actually had a lot of success just talking to some of these VR companies about this project. They're very supportive. They're very excited about it. We're able to do some co-marketing with them. We're just kind of getting started with some of that. The company that we're using, their software to process all this terrain is called Pix4D. And when I talked to the representatives there, they were so excited about this project. They sent me an email that said Pix4D is going to Mars. And they featured us in their blog. They gave us a donation of a $10,000 software license for a year. So next, I'm going to pull up the Matterport scans.
By the way, James is really awesome at asking for help from company. Like every time.
So this is the Matterport. This is basically the upper deck of the HAB. Now this is a 360 camera that you basically set down, you push a button, and it does a 360 scan of the room. It's used a lot in the real estate industry. So a lot of real estate agents will rent one of these and scan the property, and it'll be on their website. But what we did is we took, I don't know, a couple dozen scans that you do with this, maybe 20, something like that.
Yeah, probably 40.
40. So wherever you see a white circle on the floor is where he did a scan, and you can actually go around the whole MDRS this way. You can even go in the staterooms this way.
4-star.
Yeah, 4-star combinations. Nothing but the best for our crews. And then, let me yeah, this is my way. So we actually have scanned all the buildings with Matterports as well. We have the science demo, the RAM, and everything.
Yeah, I did all the connecting. Beautifully reused.
Let me do this again.
Yeah, warts and all.
All right, well, that's the Matterport. Let me try to pull it up again, actually. But I believe you know some folks at Matterport, and they may be using this in some of their marketing.
Yeah, well, I know Matt Bell, the founder of Matterport. He's the master of Matterport.
So you know the founder of Matterport, that's great. So here's the main room of the lower deck of the hab. We don't have that in the VR demo yet, but we've captured all this as well. There's the airlock. There's the prepper that we were showing you before. So this has been available. This is out on the web. Anyone can take a look at this. Sorry? Yes, we will send the link.
I think it's called Matterport MDRS.
Yeah. It's also, we have a website called marsvr.io where we link to all this stuff. Let me just show you that briefly. We've been featured in the Red Bull blog. We've had a story written about us on space.com, Spaceflight Insider, Mars Daily, just a lot of stuff going on. There was even a Colorado local TV affiliate that did a local news segment featuring our rover or our drone flying team. So, anything else? Any questions? Go ahead, Nicole.
One, can you use the cell phone version of VR?
Yes, that's a great question. So this phase 1 environment, we're estimating the amount of terrain that we've scanned currently, the 1 square mile. It's going to be about 150 gigs of data that people are going to have to download. So the answer to your question is no.
You can look at the Matterport scans.
You can look at the Matterport scans with your phone. We'll do stuff like that after we're done with this. There's a device called the Oculus Go that's really popular. It's a $200 wireless headset. It's perfect for education. I'd love to do something for that. So we're. That's also something we really want to do multi-user in the same environment. That would allow a lot of scenarios where people can explore together, but that's not in the first version. Go ahead. It's actually, we're going to put it up on Steam, and most games these days are around that size, so it's not that big.
So can you overlay other layers of data, like if you had neurological data or other kinds of data layers?
Yeah, so yes, this is going to be open sourced and available to other developers to use. We're going to put it up on GitHub, including our Unity project. So someone could download the Unity environment, download our project, and work on it. And we're going to show them how to do that. So yes, you can overlay things. We'd love to see someone make a game layer for this, for example. That's something someone could do. But yeah, we're going to be open sourcing. What we really hope is to build a community that uses this, that gets the word out about MDRS.
This is the last question.
Okay.
Prompted by your earlier comment about meat space, which I refer, I suppose, to the human world. Right. Now, is Mars ever going to be part of meat space, or is the singularity going to overtake it and render the whole thing moot? In your opinion.
We're already in a simulation anyway, so.
Beware of the meat, especially with mustard.
All right.
Thank you all. Thanks a lot.
Let me just say here that the ultimate vision here is showing NASA the power of VR, showing the public the power of VR. So the idea is that a human Mars mission would create a VR landscape so that millions of people on Earth can explore alongside the astronauts on Mars. It means a radical democratization of the exploration process. It means that when people go to Mars, we won't just be sending 4 or 5 or 6 astronauts, we will be sending, millions of us will be able to go along with them and tell them what to do. No, we'll have volunteer explorers. Anyway, so look, before I go on, I'm going to talk about the University Rover Challenge, which is something that made possible by an army of volunteers. I don't know, like 30 or so. But also this conference was made possible by an army of volunteers. And so, I don't know the names of all of them. You've seen some of them, and there's others that you haven't seen because there's a lot of things that have to happen to make a conference like this work. So let's give a round of applause to the conference volunteers. So our next speaker is going to be Kurt Shankaya. Kurt is a longtime member of the Mars Society. Were you a founding member, Kurt? He's a founding member, so he's been here since 1998. And alongside another founding member, Kevin Sloan, has been responsible for organizing this army of volunteers that in turn has organized this incredible activity called the University Rover Challenge, which he will now tell you about.
We're going to reset to the medium of modern communication, PowerPoint, and try to give you a show and not put you to sleep. And in the meantime, I do want to say that it is an honor to be asked. Kevin Sloan can't make it this time because he has some other commitments, and I was asked to kind of fill in, so don't be too harsh. Don't ask any hard questions. And overall, we'll see how it goes. The University Rover Challenge, I think, is sort of the unsung or the unknown gem of the Mars Society. You'll see it's actually a very, very large competition. There's about 200 people, 150 people in this room. There's several thousand students around the world that are involved in it every year. It is probably, by numbers, the largest aspect of the Mars Society. We're on virtually every continent, not Antarctica yet, but virtually every other continent. And we are, it's really exciting to see it grow so rapidly in the last few years. And we are actually operating at saturation in terms of volunteers, in terms of time and so forth. But we have created something really special that I'm really happy and excited to share you with. So are we seeing it? Yeah, we are. All right. So first, I'm going to change my glasses because I'm way too young to wear bifocals, and these are my computer glasses. And if we'll go on, so you heard about me, you heard what's going on. Before we get too far, I'd like to give a note to our sponsors, Protocase, which makes custom electronic boxes. And you'll see a lot of the rovers have Protocase, so they offer free services for them. I will say that I have two audiences here. One audience is, of course, you. I presume this will be streamed or put up on YouTube. And this competition, excuse me, watch what I say. So this competition is very competitive. The teams work really hard, and I expect many of the teams to be listening to what I'm saying here for things. And one of the things I'll tell you is I've noticed that the teams who use Protocase did not tell me to say this, the teams who use Protocase tend to do a lot better. So, say that for them. And also new this year is Microsoft joined us as a sponsor. And I'd also like to say just some thanks to Kevin Sloan, the USC director. He's just the energizer bunny of this. I don't know how he does it. This is almost a full-time job of organizing, as you'll see, just dozens and dozens and dozens of competitions and all sorts of logistic things. And it's a really joy to work with them. And I'm really, really honored to be a part of this. So get onto it. You'll see a picture. What is the University Rover Challenge? What are we talking about here? And bottom line, University Rover Challenge is a competition for building and testing a remotely controlled Mars astronaut assistance rover. So you kind of have to think two things. One is that this thing is supposed to assist an astronaut that's already on Mars. So we don't put in a time delay, but it's not meant to be like a walking companion. It is meant to be doing something remotely on the surface. And so one of the key aspects of this competition is that the teams have to do it blind. They are locked up in a hab or in the back end of a truck trailer. They do not have direct line of sight to what the rover is doing. And so we have to put these rovers through a variety of tests, from rough terrain and really expansive terrain to very delicate manipulation of switches. And they have to do this completely without any visual feedback other than the cameras that they put on it. It's all wirelessly controlled. So that adds a real interesting element of challenge, and it really makes it quite difficult. The other thing I'd like you to remember is that these are college teams, and you'll see some material here that I think is just at any level, is just absolute professional level in terms of workmanship and in terms of things they do and what they do. But these are kids doing it in college, most of them for college credit, and they come, they build these things. They're labors of love. There's probably tens of thousands of man hours in each one of these rovers that show up here. They're really, really beautifully made. And they come and they do 4 tasks. We'll describe those tasks in detail. And over 3 days, so late May, early June, as it kind of floats around Labor Day weekend. And so 3 days of competition. Memorial Day, Labor Day, Memorial Days, beginning and end. All right, sorry about that. So at the bottom, you see the picture of the 2018 celebration at the end where we announced the winners. You see many of the different teams there. There's probably about half the kids that actually showed up that are still there in the picture. We have about 500 students that show up there in what is a very remote desert location. And I think one of the best ways of summarizing this is Burning Man for rovers. We have hundreds of kids come with dozens of rovers. They do the rover thing and then they disappear. And it's just a totally hectic time for them in the local town of Hanksville. This year we had 36 finalists, 35 teams that came. There were over 500 students. We had over 90 teams apply, and so you multiply each one of those teams by, some of them have as many as 40, 50 members. So there are several thousand students around the world that are digging into this and getting excited about Mars and so forth. Bob wrote in his first book that it's a lot better for us to be getting excited about going to Mars than it is about competing for resources or fighting each other. And here you see it. You can see in the picture there. There's everyone. There's Turkey. Let me see if I can name most or all of them. We had Australia, first time, Mexico, Canada, United States, England, Poland, Turkey, Egypt, Bangladesh, India, and I think I'm leaving some out. I mean, just you can see all the flags out there. They're really excited to come. They share with each other. This is a really international event. All right, so where do they come? They come to the exciting metropolis of Hanksville, Utah. All 214 full-time residents. That is just about it's in southern Utah, but it's kind of far from anything. I mean, you drive down there and you're kind of off the beaten track. And of course, why are we there? Of course, it's because MDRS is there. It's a great Mars simulation, and as you'll see, it's a really expansive place. And you compare that to other type of rover competitions and other type of college competitions that are usually held in a city or in a indoor environment, and this is just quite literally a different world. So why is MDRS? I'd like to show you 2 pictures. There's MDRS. There's Mars. Kind of answers the question. I mean, this really is a really good Mars analog. So we are, other neat things about this other than just visually being similar, this has got a lot of isolation. There's no internet connection there. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no cell phone service. You're several miles down a dirt road that's really rough. And we have seen basically the simulation of launch loads, because you not only have to build a rover to operate on Mars, you have to build it to be able to survive launch and go across space. And here you have to build your rover to survive the dirt road down from Hanksville. And we have seen many a rover work fine in the Hanksville parking lot, bounce down, getting airtime on their U-Haul trailers because they're late for the competition, and they show up there and it worked half an hour ago. And this starts to teach people some really amazing things about, how to ruggedize things, how to make things reliable, how to be, self-reliant. They have to bring all their spare parts. You are a 3-hour drive one way from the nearest hobby shop that sells any kind of decent hobby electronics. So sometimes something breaks and one of their team members will disappear and will come back to the next day with a new battery or whatever. Or what we've seen in a very tough competition, we've seen students come over and another team says, hey, we got a replacement part for that. Hey, we can help you fix that. And so forth. It's really neat. The other thing is that we have a lot of territory. We have up to 1 kilometer square in several sites, and with large elevation changes, realistic terrain, and you can see that we use all of it. This is a tough thing. So the competition structure is that the college teams register in the fall, and by spring we expect a written report and a 5-minute video that kind of makes or breaks the chances to come. It's called System Acceptance Review. We'll show you an example of that. These are 5 minutes, but they're quite well done. As I said, we had over 90 teams apply. Probably this year we're going to get over 100. 36 teams were chosen. I think in the end, we have 35 that came. Again, they have to operate the rovers remotely by radio. There in the bottom, you see Missouri Science and Technology, one of the strong teams, operating from inside the hab that you just saw pictures of. That means they're on the extreme retrieval team. I'm the senior judge for this competition, so I spend a lot of time in the hab. And I actually created the course. This is sort of my baby. They have strict setup on times and on-field times. So one thing I'll say to all the teams listening in is that I've noticed that there's a very good correlation between the teams that set up well and fast and the ones that win. If you come in and you're looking like, where does this wire go and all that, but some of them come in and they're really organized, never been doing this, and it's military precision. And S&T, they have a neat thing. It's kind of hard to see, but they actually have their entire control station inside what looks like a giant guitar carrying case. And they bring it in, they put it in, plug it into the wall, open it up, we're ready to go. And that modularity has been a real advantage for them. So some other details, generally 45 minutes on a course for any particular case, about 15 minutes to set up and tear down. If you take longer than 15 minutes, you start eating into your course time. We use 3 sites so that we can continue things going on simultaneously. One of the things that we, the judges and the URC staff, have struggled with is that we see so many enthusiastic teams and so many good teams coming in that we want to do more. And it's getting harder and harder to accommodate all the teams that we really think deserve a shot there, because there are just so many of them, there's just so much of us. But one of the things we do by operating them at 3 different sites is that we can avoid radio interference. And so you have a science team down on the south site, extreme retrieval at the hab, and equipment servicing and autonomy are done at the north site. And we try to make sure that no teams do the same task in the same day, so there's quite a bit of scheduling magic comes on. But it's quite a busy time. Here you see on the lower left, my fellow judge, Daryl Robertson, checking out one of the teams in one of the U-Haul trucks. We bring down U-Haul trucks and trailers, and that serves as the interior for the other sites, as well as in the hab where we use the science dome, Shannon's favorite echo chamber. That goes up because you can start hearing everybody in there. It's that geodesic dome effect. But you can see them set up in the hab. But the U-Haul trailers where most of them work in, and it provides that blinding from line of sight. We used to use tents, and we had, just like on Mars, we had dust storms and wind storms. Only they blew our tents over, and they blew the tents over into some students, and we said, we're not going to do this anymore. So we started bringing in U-Haul trailers. I don't also want to point out that the volunteer staff really put in some long hours. This is before sunrise to after sunset work, 16 hours a day. It's a long haul because we're trying to fit in as many teams as we possibly can, and it's quite hard. And there's people put in some incredibly long hours. Be getting up and and it's still dark outside, and you'll start seeing, headlights come up, and some of the teams will already be showing up at 5:30 in the morning because they want to make sure that they make it on time and be ready to set up on course. And it's a very intense but very rewarding experience. So the basic competition structure is that we have the 4 major tasks that we do there, plus their score that they got from the spring reviews. The winners are based on a 500-point scale. You get the extreme retrieval and delivery task, which used to be the terrain traverse. And what we did is we changed the courses every few years because we start seeing that people are mastering something, or the technology, the rovers advanced to the point where all the teams are doing so well, it's not really that challenging. You'll see that we actually toughen the course every year. We change things up. But sometimes we say, it's time to retire an event. And so a few years ago, we had something called astronaut assistance, where a rover had to go and pick up boxes and bring them to the right astronauts in the field. And they'd gotten really good at that. And the autonomy technology had started to come out, and artificial intelligence and so forth. And we said, we want to do a course like that. So we combined equipment servicing with terrain. So they had to not only go over very difficult terrain, they actually do missions that required their arm simultaneously, and then kind of make a biathlon out of that, if you will. And we created the autonomy course last year. So this year was the second year of it. Equipment servicing, you'll see there, that's one of Protocase's devices they made for us a few years ago. You'll see that they made a new one for us, a little rocket ship that is quite a bit of fun. And every year we try to do something different. This year they were pulling along. They had to hook. The year we did this, they had to pull along a little wagon, and they had to pour some liquid and flip and do some valves, and just a lot of things you could do in a few minutes with your hand. But if you're doing it blind, remotely, with something not giving you physical feedback, it's difficult. And this is all done by college kids who design these things and build them from scratch. And there you see on the lower left is a science analysis where we'll go into some more details of where the kids will do what the basic mission of any Mars mission is, which is to do science. So they'll go there, they'll dig up some soils, they'll perform some analysis on it, and defend their judgments to it under the very tough questioning of our science judges. And Heather, you can see down there is someone that'll strike fear into many science students. She's eviscerated more than a few. So I wanted to show you some rover pictures, kind of give you some kind of background or just some stories. This is something I saw back a few years ago. Oculus Rift showed up, and part of it was sort of a dead end. They tried it, and we saw one team try it. It didn't really work out, because it turns out that they had such a hard time. They could see the virtual reality, but they couldn't see the displays of their controls. So the kid was constantly taking the visors on and off to try and type in and so forth. But the thing was that these things hit the market, and like next year they were showing up on rovers. And you see the rover's cameras rotate around with his head as it looked around and stuff. It was all really neat, but it was something where the technology readiness, as you say in the business, was the threshold of introducing new technology was almost zero. I mean, something shows up in the hobby world and it's on the rover the next year. Whereas, as opposed to, has this flown before and has it passed qual, and you end up with a 286 chip going out to Mars or something. Which, I'm not joking. We also see people try ideas that don't work out. We've seen about every wheel design you could possibly imagine. This is probably one of the more inventive ones. And we saw their demonstration video, and this thing really worked great. I think it was at the University of Toronto. And it was really neat. I thought, man, that's a clever idea. And then they came to, this is exploration. It's about the art of the unknown. They came to a completely different environment with different soil. Yeah, it really didn't work out very well. They started sinking up to their hubs, and it also made spectacularly deep tracks through all the soil that Shannon loved as an artistic statement on MBRS. Some things don't always work out according to plan. This was, they were driving along. It's amazing that when you're driving, with limited vision, it's very hard to see out of, the onboard cameras, especially when you're moving. You get a lot of vibration, and you start losing visibility. And so you drive over stuff that you would normally step over. So this was obviously something they didn't plan to do. It didn't really damage it too much, but it certainly ended their time on the course. So they did a bit of an oopsie. And then you see this is actually one of the stronger teams, and they did another oopsie that fell over. And it's hard to do simple things when you're doing it remotely. And we see the teams struggle with that. So this is an interesting picture. Remember, this is a college course. And this is a college level competition. So this is the Continuum rover undergoing anechoic chamber testing because they're a Polish team, and it turns out that the RC frequencies that you can use in Poland are not the ones you can use in the United States. And again, teams that are watching, the teams that have good solid comms will place well. If you don't have good solid comms, you will not be doing well. It's just a flat out, straight correlation. And so what they did is they got time in the Polish Air Force's anechoic chamber to test their comm links at US frequencies to make sure they worked. I don't know what you guys did for your college for your projects, but that wasn't on my scale. I mean, I'll tell you, kind of stop here for a second. We've also seen several teams from Southwest Asia kind of struggle with these issues because the political environment there is that people that work with remote radio controlled devices aren't always doing it for nice purposes. And so a lot of that material and that equipment is outlawed there, or they can't ship it. And so we had one of the Egyptian teams had got all their equipment. They had to actually come to the United States and build a rover before they could compete because they weren't allowed to actually build it in Egypt. And so then we started to see another Egyptian team come in. They were an Air Force team from their Air Force Academy. And they had the blank check. They were military guys that were good, so they could play with all this RC equipment. And how did they get around the customs? Because a lot of those countries, you're not allowed to ship electronics out of because you don't know what's in them. So you run into security issues and so forth. So Kevin Sloan has a list of how you're going to ship each one of these rovers to make sure that they're got their ducks in a row in terms of getting customs. The Egyptian team doesn't need to, the pharaohs, they don't need to worry about that. It says, how are you shipping to the United States? Egyptian Air Force C-130. Wow. So that kind of gives you an idea of how important this is to many teams around the world and what they're doing. I haven't seen too many tracks. You'd think, when you think off-road, you think tanks and Caterpillars and so forth. We've only seen a handful of tracks. This particular one was a very clever one that came out a few years ago. It actually was able to rise up and raise down. We have such a tough terrain that a lot of times you want low CG, but other times you want high CG to get over obstacles. So they built it adjustable. Unfortunately, it was one of those that did not have good comms, and it could demonstrate its ability to go up and down at the starting line, and that's as far as it got. But looking forward to it's really neat to see people try different ideas, and they try it and they go away and they try up another idea and so forth. It's not, oh, this is what's flown before kind of thing. They're free to create a lot of ideas. They also have to they have a funding limit of how much money they can spend. It's not a particularly high one. I can't remember the exact number, but it's not huge. It's sort of low-end economy car level, but they have to raise their own money. And we've seen that vary from, I used my personal funds to going out into the community, and we'll see videos of them going to fundraisers and Mars is exciting, and they go out. We remember one where one of the Bangladeshi teams took their rover out. They're just going down the street. You see people walking along, shopping and pushing, whatever around, and they're going by and with a Mars rover and getting people to donate and so forth. So, and they do get a lot of companies to donate. Here you can see sort of what I call the NASCAR effect. A lot of these rovers show up plastered all over with Boeing and Blue Origin and of course Protocase and so forth, or some of them Joe's Body Shop or whatever. It's really exciting to that. So one of the things that we've seen is as the teams have grown in sophistication, It's not just engineering teams. We see business teams, we see finance people, we see, of course, science teams that we'll talk about. But you start seeing them learning leadership, systems engineering, organization, finance, public outreach, public relations, all as part of a rover competition. This is another one you see setting up there, 3-meter high antenna. We have a rule that it has to be 3 meters high or no more. And it's another neat thing to see them come, because again, they're under 15-minute limits, so you see them putting them up, and do they put a stake in the ground? Do they have guy wires? Do they weight these things down? And a lot of them, they have these unusual antenna designs that will follow the rover around automatically, because they're not allowed to steer it by hand and stuff. But we do have a strict 3-meter height limit. Yes. We have a pretty long list of rules, and all behind almost every one of those rules is a story. So why do you have a 3-meter high antenna limit? Because one year, this showed up. And they started to stick that up next to the have, and Shannon came out in her gentle, sweet, polite voice. Told them they couldn't do that. Apparently what had happened is the team had gone into town and basically bought everybody's fencing. And they started to just duct tape it, nail it together, and so forth. So we said, 3-meter height limit. We got to be a little careful here. So I got to tell you some of the stories. I want to show you one of the system acceptance reviews. These are 5-minute videos that we, with the judges, see in order to decide who comes. So they're very important. It also counts towards their score. We're actually looking for a lot of detailed stuff in this. But many of them end up being very polished and very professional looking. So I'm going to show you one from Missouri State Technologies, the Mars Rover Design Team, MRDT. They're a very strong team. They won last year. They placed second this year. I'm going to show you, it's one of the better videos. It's not the best. It didn't get the highest ratings this year. But it is a very telegenic presentation. So I'm going to tell you what we're looking for and what we're not looking for. Some things we're not looking for. Loving pictures of your rover with dramatic background music, which you'll see here. But it's a waste of time. But these guys have probably put the equivalent of 10, 20,000 man hours into this thing. They pour their hearts and souls in these things. So we'll give them a little bit. It's amazing to see the pride people take within the rovers. It's amazing to see the pride they take at their universities. Aerial shots of the university, Turkish Institute of Technology, the American University of Bangladesh, and so forth. I've gotten to see a lot of universities around the world. So these videos come in, and we're left to look for, do they have a rover? Is it fully done? Is it fully done? Because this is coming in April. They're a couple months out. So we expect this thing to be pretty done. Does it move? Does it move over terrain that was similar to what we're going to do? So I want you guys to be looking for these things. Does it move over steep inclines, rough terrain, vertical drops? Does it have a working arm? Do they have a way of controlling it? Does it look steady? Can it hold heavy things? Do we have to hold up to 5 kilograms? This year we had them be able to pull out a drawer, open up a latch, flick switches, and type. That was a new one that was typing. These guys didn't do it, but one of them, they showed the computer that was online with the "I am not a robot," and they showed their rover typing in the letters. And so, autonomy. Do you show that you're autonomous? Do you show you're able to recognize targets in the field? What are your comms like? What is your electrical system like? What is your science team like? Do you have specialized scientists? What kind of instrumentation are you going to do? What kind of experiments are you going to do off-board to fulfill the science task? What kind of financing do you have? And so forth. So let's see if the sound works. And I don't think we have sound. Yeah. Try it again. I have to put on my looking at people glasses. Don't go anywhere. No.
We're gonna have the silent movie version.
Put the microphone up there.
Every speaker's nightmare. Anyway, some of the videos we've seen, West Virginia saying country road very badly. But, generally what we see is people trying to highlight the rovers. I've also noticed, for example, that I'm convinced no one in Bangladesh owns a pair of safety goggles, because you see them, working with all sorts of drill presses and everything. But the dedication they put in and the amount of preparation they put in is really quite impressive. Do we have sound? Try and click. So we're going to. You do not think so? Nope. It's not producing sound here either. So.
You, Paul, but I want to hear.
We could just one more shot.
Did I tell you about the children's karaoke at school? Isn't it this place down? Children's karaoke. It's got a big glass front like a department store. It was about 20 people. Just for kids. I don't know.
Is the video able to be started now?
Unbelievable, good idea.
No.
Yeah, we could just do it with the mic. Well, it froze the machine right now. So. We could,
I was really excited. Yeah. Things everyone else knows, kids think know it. The children, right?
Give him a minute. Then we'll be on.
only in the MBTA.
Okay, we're gonna have to do the silent version of this. So what you can see is they're just kind of starting off. This is sort of an intro, sort of a data free, and then they're going to come along. It works a lot better when they're doing it. But you'll start to, here's the CEO. So you can tell this is a very organized team with a strong business point, and they describe what the rover's doing. They describe how they did it. They describe their organization. There you see the loving pictures of the rover with nice dry ice and everything. This is actually a really well-designed rover. And, so we'll move beyond, the narration of what they're doing and why. And you'll start to see, again, starting to see organization. This is a chief technology officer. And so you start to see team organization and how they divide up their tasks and that they provide really good teamwork. You can see mechanical architects, we'll see chief electrical design, chief communication design, chief scientist, and so forth. Here you see in the able to roof, so that was the vertical drop. They're going out in outdoor terrain, rough terrain. They have a pretty unique suspension system. A lot of people do the 6 rover bogey suspension that you see on our Opportunity and MSL, but they chose a different design. It's a composite. We do have a weight limit, so they do a lot of advanced material. We're starting to see a lot more 3D machining. We're starting to see a lot more composite design. Electrical power has been an issue for a lot of folks, and so these guys really took a lot of attention to the electrical subsystems, and that has paid off for them. Also interesting to see what people use for terrain. People sometimes use quarries like you've seen there, lumber yards. We've seen them use steps and all sorts of internal areas and different ways to demonstrate that. People that just kind of drive around on a lab floor really are not doing it. You're doing it for me. Here you see, again, the rough terrain, the steep inclines. This is actually a rover that's really impressed me with their cross terrain capability. And so there you see the modular control station that I talked about earlier, and then the different antennas. They're talking about here the antenna setup and solid comms. Now you're starting to see the camera system they have, and the antennas, which I don't remember which frequency it is, but they really do have a really good solid comm system. Here you see the rover, and again, they designed this rover. They built this arm all by themselves. And so the ability to grip things, move things precise amounts, back and forth, the ability to type, which is going to be an issue that we'll go into later, and then the ability to very precisely maneuver things and pull things around. And then you can see here the ability. This was really neat where they divided it, and you can see their ability to pull different. Pull drawers back and actually get visibility of it, and how they control it. We see a lot of the technology we've seen advance, the software advance I've seen in this competition, from people just kind of writing software on their own to getting huge amounts of software that automatically do this. Now we're starting to see something that we really look for: a science team, a specific specialist in science, and then their means of digging things up. They had to actually dig things up from about 6 inches underground and be able to take that soil up without a contact there and mixing the future. They had an onboard fluorescence spectrometer, which again is kind of not what I did when I was in college. So we're seeing X-ray spectrometers. We're seeing a lot of really sophisticated equipment. Plus they describe the chemistry and the biomarkers, and we're looking for scientific knowledge. Something more than an engineer reading Wikipedia, which will get them the wrath of the science judges. Here you see, again, huge amounts of software coming in for autonomy, and they're going to demonstrate that the autonomy cam is able to find and track the tennis balls we put out on course, so they can go to the precise point and then find the tennis ball and move on. And then they have a LiDAR that allows them to navigate for terrain without running into things. All of which worked reasonably well. I mean, like I said, they're one of the stronger teams. They're not. So then they come in proud at the end, and you can see here the scale of the team. There's only a handful that actually show up in Hanksville, but every one of these teams has got a crowd like this that is behind them. around the world. And they get really excited. A lot of them have their own slogans. The other thing is so that they all have their own shirts. And pretty much every team has got their, their own logo and shirts, and they come up with a lot of team spirit and so forth. All right, so moving along. The specifics of the equipment servicing, the idea is to perform maintenance tasks on a panel. I don't want to get in a suit and go outside and do something. Can I get the rover to do it? And so things that are easy for a human but are hard for a robot to do remotely. We've oftentimes instructions out in the field that people have to read and so forth. And the task changes and increases in difficulties. You see here what we did in 2015, and then we see what Protocase made for us in 2018. Again, thanks for Protocase for doing this. They did both of these boxes, but this little rocket here that is the center of the 2018 testing was actually quite a bit of challenge. So we'll show you some videos. There's no sound in these videos, so we should be able to just kind of walk through them. But again, I want to thank Daryl Robertson, one of the fellow judges, for taking these videos and providing them. So you can see in the beginning, another attempt at a remote vision technique, and which actually seemed to work a bit better this time. But the kind of close-up views that they wanted to do, and it gives you an idea of what the teams are seeing as opposed to what we're seeing. You will see people on the outside. That's because they're allowed to send outsiders that don't talk back in order to do emergency stops and kind of see how the rover's doing. But you can see here they're trying to pull back. This is actually Brigham Young, another good team, trying to demonstrate to pull back. And they have to put that little box in there and see how that works. And this drawer actually was pretty hard to pull out. Now here we see PCZ, was a very strong Polish team coming along, and they had a different articulation to their arm, and it kind of gives you the wrong impression because they made it look easy. And you're going to see them come along, and just like in real rover land, now they're under a time limit to do all of this within 45 minutes, but they're still taking their care to do it slowly, precisely, get it right the first time. You can see the camera that's giving them a close-up view right up above it, and they just slide it in. Trust me, everyone else didn't do this. And they slide it in the first time, and then just drop it down. 1, 2, 3, there we go. So, and there we're done. So here we see them opening up the hatch on the other side. One of the teams has to move up, pick up the latch, back up, and then underneath it is a keyboard. And they had to go in and type things. And one of the challenges of the keyboard is not only seeing with extreme precision, and now you can't have this hand, jogging back and forth. You got distorted vision and so forth. But you actually have to press delicately, not so hard that it's breaking keys off and falling in and so forth. And here you see them doing, a relatively easy task for us. And again, any astronaut will tell you there's a lot of stuff that's easy to do without a suit and just hand. It's hard to do in a suit, and it's really hard to command a rover to do, remotely. Just grab that little handle and that little latch, something we can do in 2 seconds, and they're going to pull it open and expose the keyboard. And we'll see some attempts to type and kind of see the difficulties of vision. We see the huge leaps in the number of cameras. We're seeing huge leaps in the resolution of the cameras and the amount of data that comes back, and their ability to do things. And so we keep on changing the ante of how we do the competition tasks in order to keep them tough. Here another part of the task. Remember, they have to do this whole thing in 45 minutes, including positioning the rover. And they have to read a certain configuration of switches, and they have to lift up the safety covers and put them on and flip them. And you can just see, again, PCZ making it look easy. We'll talk more about the poles. They are rover powerhouses. It's amazing to see the dedication that they have and the strength that they have as a nation in robotics. And they're doing all that, making it look easy. Here you see another guys that are what they see from inside and how they're having to maneuver it. Again, without any tactile feedback, without being able to see it with the kind of 3D vision that we normally take for granted. So here's the autonomy course. Basically you give a bunch of tennis balls out. We give them the GPS coordinates that are sort of exact, and then they have to go and find the actual tennis ball. They have to go to it, and the software on board has to identify the tennis ball, say, I found the ball, and they have to communicate that back. The they found it. And this is done hands-off. The crew's not driving this. This is the rover doing this. And so in this case, we show the BYU rover. Again, a video from Daryl Robertson come up, and they've navigated to the point, and it's begun to look, and it's identified the tennis ball, and it's looking, and what it'll do, you see the little camera mast on the top. When it identifies the ball, it'll nod. So look for the nod. And he's kind of looking around, man, I'm sure it's somewhere in the area. This is the right GPS coordinates. Where is it? And we'll buy Daryl a camera tripod next year. And there it gets close. There you see it. That's kind of cute. Science task. Again, gather soil sample. It's why you're there. Do the analysis. We do a mixture of on and off board. This year we were making them core down several inches. Again, you saw some of the testing that's done on board, and they have to do reports to the science judges and present their conclusions and discuss it in a scientific manner. And you can see on the lower right, Heather and Ann, who used to be one of the first science judges, grilling Brigham Young there with their discussions. This is the one thing where if your rover just completely croaks and is dead, you still get a chance because they'll let you go with a certain penalty and do the science. Heather's done a great job over the years of emphasizing the science more and more so that you don't have an engineering team come in and say, as one of the teams said, pH, who cares about that? And instead, you're getting science majors showing up, geology majors. We're having chemistry majors come up, and they get to do the analysis, defend it, and have a real good scientific discussion of that. So I want to show this is one of the Indian rovers going off to get a sample, and you'll see their technique of digging up in a little bit. Again, this is being done remotely so that the crew cannot see the actual rover in operation while a safety and observer team is allowed to go outside but not communicate back. And you'll see it start to dig in a little bit. And found a site. This looks like a good location, and now we're, the amazing variety of different techniques they have. Here you see them augering in, and then they need to bring it up and put it into a soil catch box to bring back. And here you see that they actually changed their from the normal gripper front, they had a special coring front with several different sizes. And they put in temperatures, they put in pH probes, and do all sorts of analysis on board, and then come back and do more integrated analysis there. For those of you that remember Harrison Schmidt's coring attempt on Apollo 17, sometimes the soil is a lot harder than you expect, but they struggled and dug in and got what they needed to do. There, and then you see them have to maneuver back and actually drop it into a box and sample it. And then, of course, people who worked with Mars Phoenix lander and so forth will recognize that type of problem immediately. And then they come and then close the lid back down. There we go. We're ready to go. Nice and sealed. This is a video we got from our proto case, and you're seeing them just a variety of different teams doing the science cache task of how they're removing their samples from the rover here. You're going to see them. Let's see. Here it is. Here you see this is the rover from putting them in. Here you see them removing them back out, and then taking the soil, sealing them up, then they bring them into town, they do a more extensive chemical analysis on it, and then they defend their conclusions. We've kind of expanded the amount that they're doing this each year from just a quick one in the tent to one that actually requires quite a bit of analysis in town, and getting more sophisticated each year. So talk a little bit more detail about the extreme retrieval and delivery task, mostly because it's one I'm familiar with. You can see, again, we see many pictures of the HAB and the Science Dome. This is from a few years back when we were still doing this as a terrain course, but we still use pretty much the same terrain features. those little blue arrows, the have and the side stones where the alternate teams coming from, those blue arrows in the background are elements that the rovers have to go to and do tasks. And so this is a big course. I remember sitting in the have once and standing in the back door, and one of the returning teams came and walked out the back door and said, "Wow, I forget how big this place is." You know, you're not going to find this on any kind of indoor terrain course. So we combined tough terrain with various tasks. You have to find a water bottle or a tool to bring it to an astronaut, which are kind of little bags that little mannequin shapes that we have, and we use a lot of terrain height and a lot of distance to do this. To give you an example, this is from a few years ago, but again, very similar terrain elements we're using. Very large steep climbs, vertical drops up to 3 feet, rough terrain with something we call the rock garden that we used to force people to go through. Now, sometimes you just run into rough terrain and you just have to do it. And I'll tell you, one year I was sitting there, and a returning team was coming there, and they were doing the spirit thing. They kept on getting stuck on various rocks, and they kept on, and they're like, the observers were like, "How can this be? I took digital photographs of this. We made a 3D map and designed our rover to be exactly the right height." And I said, "I moved in bigger rocks." They were pretty heavy too. And they looked at me and said, "How come?" And I said, it's exploration. You can't count on knowing what you're going to run into. So we try to change the course a little bit each year. So I want to show you a couple of quick video clips from Manipal, one of the Indian teams, a very strong Indian team, and just kind of give you an example of what that's like. Here you see them going through the rock garden. This year we try to kind of change the course with my friend Bill Clancy is the one that kind of came up with the idea of this, where instead of forcing them to go through an artificial course, what we did is we made a goal of why they had to go in there. So they are looking for a special rock. And we told them it's somewhere in this GPS coordinate. Then they need to pick up that rock and drop it off in a science cache for later analysis. And so it makes them go through some rough terrain. You can see a lot of that was pretty tough. And now you're seeing them found the rock. The rock is just below the claws there. This turned out to be sort of a fortunate design feature where the rock was actually lower than the wheelbases. And plus you got all them getting wedged in with all these rocks there. You can see almost gripping it. You'd be amazed how many rovers hadn't thought of how I get that arm below my wheelbase. I hadn't planned it that way, but it turned out to be a great experimentation. It's a medical, rising to the occasion and just very delicately picking that up and holding this slick rock as they come back over those bouncy rocks and so forth. Again, very tough thing. Here, next we're going to show, they got to a more advanced stage on the course. They're almost they're over half kilometer away. They're behind a rock incline. They're delivering a tool to an astronaut. If they have to look for a tool in a certain area, we don't tell them where, and they deliver it next to them. And Shannon was the judge there, and you'll see that she approved of how they did it. But what I want you to concentrate on is the next is that they're going to zoom in on the last part, which is up on the hill, and kind of give you an idea of the scale of this place and the terrain that we're making them go. They just managed to drop it off, and yeah, they did it. And then they come up, and you can see sort of a little white dot on there. That's where you need to go next. And that is quite a distance up there. So so what we did this year is we actually changed it so that they had to go and assist an astronaut there. You can see sort of a little blob next to them, and that has a sign that's pointed on the far side away from the astronaut that has a symbol on it. And they have to go up there, read the symbol, and it'll say something like, "I need a battery, I need a wrench," or something. And then they have to go back down and pick up a box. We made the boxes all identical in weight and size, but the boxes are labeled differently. And they have to pick up the right box and then drop it off that astronaut. So they have to do this 3 times. And here you see something that's very similar. We heard about Opportunity having the problem with the broken wheels this morning. This is Brigham Young trying to go up. They have 2 broken wheels. And here you see their safety team going up behind them, and they're having a lot of trouble. It's hard to go up and down inclines with wheels that aren't all working. And in this case, they kind of got a little bit off course, and we'll see what happened. They're trying, they're digging in, and maybe we'll try this direction. Yeah, let's try here. Wait, we're losing steering control. I do feel bad, but we are, of course, the Rex Rovers. So I do feel bad about that for any of the teams that watch. And so I want to show, for last of this, I want to show, this was PCZ, a strong Polish team. This is they scored extremely well throughout the competition. They are the only people that had gotten to this point with 90 points. Will they get this last, that's this last piece, make it a perfect score, will, cement their lead. And this is, they're setting up the barbecue in the background. This is the last run of anybody. And so you can see them going up. They've kind of gives you an idea of what that incline looks like. I'll tell you, we've already destroyed 2 rovers here besides BYU. I was talking to the Raptors, another Polish team, and they were trying to get to our little astronaut friend on the side, and their rover just tipped and tumbled all the way down. You can see the scarring marks of where it fell down there on the right. And so they're getting up there, and they're getting ready to do it, and they're thinking about what they're going to do. And at this point, I believe they've already read the sign, and they've got the little box. It's a little 4-inch square box, and they're moving behind it, and they're kind of thinking about what to do. Planning, organization, discipline, practice, all coming into play in terms of making a successful run of this. And so they're thinking carefully, and they're getting a little bit closer, and a little bit closer. A little bit closer. This is a steep incline, and of course they know that several of their teammates have already gone over, and this is a steep incline here. And so the rules are that you need to drop the box and have it come to rest next to the astronaut, who's kind of looks to be quite distressed there. But the rover can't touch him. If the rover, the rover runs over him, the wheel touches him, that's it. And so they're thinking about, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? This is going to be really tricky. And so they're coming back and forth, and a lot of times, it's not how fast you do it, it's how carefully you do it, even though they're under a 45-minute clock for everything that you saw so far on this course, plus some things that you didn't. So it really takes some good planning and organization. So they're being real careful here. And I think what we'll do is kind of move on. We skip forward a few minutes, and remember, they can't touch it, and they're figuring out, how can I get in there without tumbling. They don't need to come down afterwards. They just need to drop it off, not have it walk near them, not have it roll away. Let's try it this way. Yeah, let's get a little bit closer. Can you see the little box? They haven't touched it yet. Remember, they don't need to come down afterwards. They just need to drop it off and not hit the guy. And so, bloop. You did. They did it. And they were the only ones to get a perfect score. So that was some good fighting. Quickly wrap it up with some team stories. Can't really talk about the URC without talking about the Poles. The URC has really become a huge thing in Poland. They have their own European rover competition that they host. This is a high prominence thing there. So here you see Hyperion, the 2013 winner, being presented as an example of Polish, achievement to Secretary of State at the time, John Kerry. They've been interviewed on national television. They've met the Prime Minister. This is a big thing in Poland. They're very proud of what they do on the URC. So And I don't think, if you're not in football or something, you'd be meeting the president or, being introduced to foreign dignitaries like that here. But I do want to bring up a little shout out for one of our American teams, the Missouri University of Science and Technology. They showed up with their shirts, they showed up with their organization, they showed up with their motto. First time they showed up, what they didn't show up with is a rover that moved. It just sat and quivered there. And they went home, and the next year they came, and it worked a little bit. It wasn't that good, but it worked. And then they came back, and this time they were really strong. And I think it was the fourth year that they came, 2017, and they won. And what you could see is the levels of organization. They could see good team camaraderie. You could also see good corporate memory. That's something that all of us can learn, where the seniors leave and the juniors remember the lessons. And whether that's in industry or whether that's in university, that's always a challenge. And they did a really good time. They placed second this year after PCC. They're a very strong team. They're really excited. Another one that you can't really get away from this is the Indian and Bangladeshi teams. This has become extremely popular in South Asia. So one year, we had Canadians and Americans, we had the usual contingents and so forth. And then one year, this Indian team came, wondering where the vegan options were in Hanksville, which is pretty much a hamburger town. Not having public, wondering where the public transportation to MDRS was. I'm not saying that this particular team's that one, they're a little out of sync, but an Indian team came and they went home and they told about this incredible competition that they're in. So next year, a whole bunch of Indian teams came. And then we had a Bangladeshi team come. They said, hey, our friends over in India said that there's this really incredible competition. And they told all their friends. And I know this is Rucher, that's an Indian team. They got Indian flags. I know there's a difference. But more Bangladeshi teams started to come. And, I didn't know there were that many engineering, colleges in Dhaka, but I think all of them apply. We have something like a dozen teams from Bangladesh that apply. And we have a pure merit-based application process. So the American University of Bangladesh came, Harvard didn't make it. Yale didn't make it. These guys are good. So, and then, we're getting more teams every year. We're getting, more teams from South Asia. We got a Turkish team. We got an Australian team, an English team for the first time. It's expanding all the time. But I'm just amazed at, they've got a strong Mars Society team there. They've met with the American ambassador there. This has become, Mars and URC become a big thing in Bangladesh. And we just need to do that in a lot more countries. So how has the competition evolved? Number of quality teams is increasing this year. We're getting slammed. We expect over 100 teams to apply. We are just totally short of volunteers, hint, hint. As long as you're willing to work really hard and really hot weather. The tasks have evolved. We do try to mix things up every year. We try to change them. We try to see what people are doing and master it so that we can kind of up the educational level and make sure that the top teams don't just bring back the same rover and win again and again and again. And we're seeing increasing sophistication, and the technology just moves so fast. Where I'm, used to the usual aerospace pace where, 20 years is, tomorrow. And it just takes a long time to bring in new technology. This is something where, hey, I got an idea. Hey, there's a new software out there. Hey, there's a new hobby item out there. And we should see it on the road the next year so we can see the entrepreneurship of invention that is really, really rapidly. It's really been exciting to be part of this. So what's next? We're going to get bigger. We're going to make the competition tougher. And that, here we see it. It's an honor to be part of something this big and this exciting. And this is, sort of like I said, the unknown giant of the Mars Society's activities. And that's it. Any questions or any? I'm not hearing anything. Going once? Yeah.
My talk was on improving robotics and propulsion systems so that we can prepare the infrastructure for Mars. And I hope that in your future competitions that you'll have the rovers and the robotics actually build infrastructure.
It's an interesting idea. We can put an element of it because they are timed, to get 36 teams on the field for 4 things, we're generally limited to about a half hour, 45 minutes of activity. But that's an interesting thought. Maybe they could, lay down a little piece of railroad track or something. Next.
And I actually spoke about medicine today, and I'm curious if you've thought about using them for human extrication or rescue, upping the ante, upping the payload.
That would be an interesting one because we'd have to make sure that they didn't harm the patient. And so forth. That's an interesting thought. Thank you.
Do the teams get a lead time to know sort of the nature of the course, like how First Robotics does? If they let them know sort of what the objective is a week or 2 in advance?
The competition basic rules are known, and we've tried to do a better job of laying out exactly, some of the specifics of the tasks, like a month ahead of time, so they can do a little bit of strategy. But I kind of don't want them designing towards a specific task. We want them to be open to the unknown of exploration. And so we leave a lot of ambiguity there. And to be honest, it's really tough for a team to do well the first year. They kind of have to come and see the environment. Well, this is different than the NASA thing. We're inside a building. It was air conditioned. This is different and so forth.
So.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I went to Indianapolis for a couple of years, and they got so tight on the competition at the 500, everything was regulated. So how close are you, are you tightening in that kind of situation where teams are considered to have an unfair advantage, or are there levels of software that you allow? Are they allow AI type approaches with adaptive learning?
Right now, there's not a lot of limitations. We're trying to leave the creativity be open. There is a spending limit. As we get more and more people coming, what we're trying to do is set up feeder competitions that might involve some of that tiering that you're. But right now, these are the rules. Come and may the best rover win. And I think Tony.
Have you seen any innovations that really ought to be incorporated into real Mars and lunar rovers?
We've seen so many different rover wheel combinations and different types, like the PCZ one you saw. When that first came up, I thought, here's the little itty bitty wheels and kind of big and flimsy, and that's never going to work. And it turned out to be extremely stable and extremely flexible. Another one called Scorpion. What they did is they mounted their arm on the back, and they used that as a CG counterweight so that they could go up steeper terrain. They used the arm position to control their CG. We've seen variable height rovers. One came with a flexible, it didn't work out too well, but they came with a very flexible wheelbase so it could adapt to it. So I think if you went through the hundreds of rovers you have, you see a lot of ideas. You see a lot of different clever things that they've done.
Yes.
Where's the voice coming?
There here in the darkness. How about a secondary device? Supposing you put the rover out there and it needed to have a quadcopter to find its way out, so that there was a secondary vehicle to help it map its way out of a trap.
Okay, we've thought and discussed a lot about quadcopters and so forth. Part of it is that as judges, we're walking really close to these things, and I don't want somebody who's sitting in a U-Haul half a mile away riding a Cuisinart next to my head. But there's another issue is that we are still on Earth, and we're within 5 miles of an active airport, so technically UAVs aren't allowed, or they require certain regulations. So right now we don't allow UAVs. But we probably with Mars helicopter, we need to rethink that. That is an interesting thought. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm from Salt Lake City, and we're not that far from Hanksville, and we have a good chapter. We're happy and excited about getting involved. But what I'm really impressed with is the incredible international expansion. I believe we did have a team from Latin America, Mexico, is that correct?
Yeah, from Mexico, first time. Yeah.
We need teams from Latin America, from more African nations. And I understand there is a country in Asia where there is some interest in robotics and space travel. I think it's called China. You know, it'd be great if we had teams from there, in Russia, a lot of countries to go yet. So I think this is going to continue to grow and build, and it's very exciting.
It really is. And you notice that there are a lot of countries here, but there are a lot that are missing. You know, where's Germany? Where's Russia? Where's China? Where's Japan? And I think a lot of it is publicity. You know, we don't do a lot of publicity, as Bob has chastised us with over the years. And part of it is that we're already slammed in terms of our ability to handle the teams that are coming in. But as you know, we do want to grow, and we do want to see people from all over compete. And you can see, you know, Bangladeshi friends from India, you know, working together. We've had you know, Israeli teams and Egyptian teams apply, and it's neat to see them all come together with the national pride, but without the animosity. So, anyway, any more?
Yeah, for any given task, are teams that do the task later allowed to see footage of teams that did that task earlier?
No, we don't let other teams on the field, but we try to keep people off the field. You know, in that case, it's inevitable that people talk and so forth. In a lot of cases, they'll be familiar or they'll be able to see, you know, visually what's going on. I'll tell you that by and large, there's not a lot of surprises, you know, in the sense like, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. It's not a murder mystery. And seeing it doesn't always really help you a lot. You know, we brought that little rocket that they had to do all the tasks on. We brought that to town and let everybody look at it before. And they were all they're pulling on the switches and everything. It's just so different when you do it remotely. Right.
Two more questions.
Two more questions. How hot does it get out there? Wow, it gets hot. Any more?
Where are your volunteer opportunities advertised?
They're kind of not.
You can email cfay@marsociety.org to volunteer. I would love any interest from anybody. We definitely have lots of stuff for anybody to do whatever you were good at. We will make sure that you are doing something fun and exciting and being involved in something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, we are short of volunteers. It is, but just be prepared if you come out. This is 3 long, hot, hard days. It's rewarding, but it's not easy. So, all right, one more question. Oh, come on. All right.
You've been involved with it for a while. Why do you keep doing it?
We ask ourselves that all the time.
Every year, Shannon promises the air conditioning will work in the half next year. It's really rewarding. It's hard work. It's actually not very expensive. I mean, once you get to Hanksville, it's kind of hard to spend money. Yeah, so it doesn't cost a lot. Don't think that this is an expensive thing. You fly down there, you drive down there, and then basically we feed you and house you. But it's deeply rewarding to see, you know, all the kids get so excited, to see them learn so much, to see them progress and try out all these different ideas so quickly. And then, you know, the Turkish team had pretty much their entire rover confiscated and misshipped, and they showed up and they got a 0 on everything. And the science judge won the John Bianco Award for Best Science Presentation. They're all cheering and crying and jumping throwing up in the air. It's worth it. Now back to Bob.
Okay. So, we have, first of all, 2 outstanding volunteer awards. Okay, first, well, the key person in making our most important single program. Okay. This way. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. To make our most important single program go, is the mistress of the MDRS, Shannon Rupert. Well earned, you know. She lives out there in the desert, okay? And with her 3 dogs, helps shepherd the program along. Okay. And now, another outstanding volunteer who's played a major role in both making our website work, but now launching our virtual reality campaign, James Burke. All right. So, and by the way, I do want to mention, you know, this rover contest. Okay, if you think, they get a lot of applications and they down select to about 30 teams or so that are allowed to actually produce rovers and bring them to the desert. And if we just count those, probably at least 5 man-years of effort per team, times 30 teams, 150 man-years of effort, okay, just on the part of the team members. If you translate that to engineering money, that's $15 million a year worth of engineering effort that is supplied for free. Okay, that is done, generated. And if you take that times 10 years, like $150 million worth of effort has been done so far in that program, roughly speaking. And I have no idea how much effort was put into the teams this year that competed into the Red Eagle contest, but each team may have been comparable. So we had a contest this year to design a lander that could land 10 tons on Mars. You know, the largest amount that has been landed on Mars to date is 1 ton. You know, NASA is saying we can't land 10 tons on Mars, and therefore we're going to build a lunar orbit gateway or whatever. But we need to be able to land at least 10 tons on Mars if we're ever going to send humans to Mars. Or with 10 tons landed on Mars, you could land an army of robots on Mars that can fan out with cameras and film the virtual Mars, just, you know, as we can show them how to do with our program. So there were about 15 contestants that submitted reports. We down selected the 5 finalists who were invited to come here and present in person today. Okay. And how did I do with this? Okay. Okay, nothing on my sleeve. Okay. All right. So these were from France, Team Argo Nova. From Germany and Sweden. No, Argo Nova was from Germany and Sweden. From France, we had the Red Movers. Okay. We had Team Gurjal from a combined team from India and Italy. We had Team Icarus from the USA and Project Eagle from Poland. So, okay. So, in 5th place, Team Gurjal from India and Italy. The representative of Team Gurjal, please come up. They come. If there is more than the trophy, there is a cash prize, $1,000. That shows we're sincere. There's nothing more sincere than cash. In 4th place, from the United States, Team Icarus. And this team, you should know, all the other teams were all college students. Most of the members of this team were high school students from Cerritos High School right here in California. So that comes with a $2,000. So in 3rd place, with an even more sincere $3,000 prize, okay, is the Red Room Movers from France. Yes. Now, come to who's going to be second with $5,000 and first with $10,000. And this was actually very close, because I'll tell you right now, when we added up all the scores of these teams, one of them had 412 points and the other had 413. Okay, so, but there can only be one first place winner, and it is how it is. So, in 2nd place with 412 points, missing the tie by 0.25% is Project Eagle from Poland. Scorpio, I believe we had a rover team of Scorpio, which did they place third this year in the rover contest? Ken? Kurt? Yes, so they were actually from the same university in Wrocław, I believe. Yeah, they placed third, and sometimes they've won. And so the winner is, there's not much suspense left here. Well, we had, no, okay, from Germany and Sweden, Argo Nova. And you should know, we're going to have another contest next year, and it's going to be a little different. But I can't actually announce it right now because we're in negotiation with certain other organizations to do it jointly with them, and I have to get all the ducks in a row, and we're going to announce it all together. But I will say that the contest we're going to have next year, if it's the one that we're working on right now, will involve not only design, but building something and demonstrating it. Okay? So it will actually be engineering design and demonstration. So there's that. So let's see. Okay, well, I guess it's my turn. Okay, you've gotten some sense at this conference and this banquet of the sort of things that the Mars Society does. We hold conferences where people get to share ideas, get to put their ideas into the mix in the great intellectual effort of figuring out how we can get humans to Mars, how we can settle Mars, how Mars should be governed, what should the future look like. We have this one here. We're going to have another one in Europe, in Switzerland at the end of October. You're all invited. It's in a nice place, I understand. We hold the rover contest and other competitions like the Red Eagle thing. We promote science and engineering, and we show people how, if society does accept the challenge of humans to Mars, how that will inspire many, many, many young people to develop their talents in science and engineering, and that is justification in itself for a Humans to Mars program. We do try to intervene in the political world. We try to dispel fog that is constantly being generated by, there's these fog generators. And, okay, you know, the truth will set us free. And we want to expand these efforts. The rover contest, as you can see, is magnificent, but most of you have not seen the rover contest before. Why haven't you seen it on television? Why haven't you seen it in the newspaper? Well, okay, yeah, as Kurt said, I'm all over them on getting publicity, but I think what we need to do is hire professional PR flack for a few months to publicize the rover contest and get the press there. This is something that people everywhere need to see. This is a big story. Thousands of young people around the world building rovers that is spending, generating the equivalent of tens of millions of dollars worth of effort to do this. And that's just this contest. The one in Poland is of equal size. Okay, and then there's another one in India that has now gotten started, and which may soon be bigger than these. Who knows? We want to expand this. We're trying to figure out how to do it, but I want to create a junior version of this contest for high school students, okay, and get that thing done. This could be done at the high school level, not at this degree of technical proficiency, but something that is appropriate at that level, and we want to figure out how to do that. We want to expand the effort at MDRS. I want to instrument the lab there better to improve the scientific facilities there. Shannon's always coming, we need one of these. And I say, can't you get a cheaper one of those? And, there you go. And we have to do this stuff. And I'd like to organize more conferences that is like local events at various universities in various places. You know, that you can, a one-night event at a university, a night on Mars, and have fly in a couple of people to speak and have an audience of a couple hundred in a college auditorium. This kind of thing. This is the sort of thing we do, okay? And it takes some money. We are incredibly efficient at how we spend money. We have only one paid staff person, and that's Shannon. She does this absolutely full-time, lives in the desert, and she does it on a very modest salary. Okay, I don't draw any money from the Mars Society. Carrie, who does the administration, doesn't draw any money from the Mars Society. None of the volunteers at the URC, the crew members who come to MDRS actually pay to go there. We don't pay them. We don't pay their travel. We sometimes have to pay the travel when we want to do the flashlight station in the Arctic, because the travel to there is so expensive that it's unrealistic in general to ask people to pay there. Would cost $4,000 just to fly for the rest of the day. And I'd like to have, we were not at Flashline Station this summer. We were there last summer. I'd like to be there again next summer. That's going to cost, to do a 1 month field season on Devon Island, cost about $70,000. Okay, so mostly in transport costs, and about a third of it in actual supplies and things, which are all fantastically expensive, but it's worth doing. Anyway, the point is this: we need some money. Okay, it can't be done entirely for free. So I'm going to ask for it. So first I'm going to ask, okay, and I'll be the first volunteer. Okay, who here can give $1,000 to help this activity? I will do it. Okay, over there, is that Frank? Frank Crossman, $1,000. Anyone else? Anyone else? 1,000. Over there, who's that? There. Carrie, can you write down this name? Yeah.
Yes, if you were donating, please go to the stations at the end.
Well, can you have someone just go over there to him?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? $1,000. Who here can give $1,000? Come on. $1,000. Who here can give $1,000? Okay. How about $500? Okay, that's just half of what everybody else just gave. We have to give $500. We have over to Andy, okay, Kurt, Roger, someone over there, or are you pointing at someone? We have a woman over there in the back, $500. Okay, your name? Elena. Anyone else? $500. Oh, a gentleman over here. Vince, $500. Who else? Okay, over there. Okay, Jerry. Okay, $500. Anyone else over here? What's your name, sir? Don? John. Do we have a volunteer go over there?
Yes, just keep your hand up.
Keep your hand.
Stay up there 2 seconds.
Yeah, until the volunteer comes there. Anyone else? $500. Come on, $500. What's that? That's 5 lift tickets. The what is that? Okay, Is there anyone else, $500? Oh, is that someone there just raised? No. Okay, how about $250? Over here, this gentleman, your name? Pat. Max. Oh yeah, Max Fagan. I have to apologize. My eyes are not what they were. It's been 20 years since I started this thing. Over there in the back, okay, the gentleman from Utah. Okay. Another one, come on, someone else, $250, let's see. Over here, okay, we have, so keep your hand up or something so someone can catch you. Anyone else, $250? $250. Over here. Tom? Yes? Carrie, there's a gentleman over here, $250.
If you're donating, just keep your hand up. We have about.
Over here, $250?
You got it.
All right, you sir, your name? Robert. Robert.
Just kind of keep your hand up a little bit and we'll
Okay,
get around.
can we get a volunteer over to Robert?
6 or 7.
Okay, all right. All right, so anyone else, $250? Okay, how about $100? $100. All right, now we got it, now we're talking, $100. Okay, so can we have some volunteers be going around over here? Names, okay, Heidi, I think I saw. Okay, and you, sir? What? John Cable, I think, right? All right, and then this gentleman's already being tempted. Over here, okay, $100, let's keep the hands up. Over there, what's your name, miss? Hannah, from England? All right, okay, you've been making a lot of sharp comments during the sessions, I saw. Okay, thank you. Oh, you did, okay, not kidding. Who else, $100, anybody else over here? Any other $100 donations? All right. Do we have $100 people who haven't yet been funded? $100. We have one over here. Okay. Call out your name. Gabriella. Okay. Others. Anyone else with $100 over there? There's mostly students over there. What? All right. Did we get all the $100 pledges? All right. How about $50? What are you going to do with $50? Anyone? All right. Look, if you want to give, oh, we have one over here. Bill for $50. Anyone else? All right. All right. Carrie?
Yes.
You have a poster?
I do.
Where is it?
On the table.
Can someone get it?
Yes, they can. Gabrielle? Gabrielle? Yes. Choose your band tonight, Robert.
Can someone get the poster?
She's going.
Okay. We're about to have an auction. Okay, this is the conference poster. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay. So this conference poster has been signed by practically all the plenary speakers, and I have signed it. Paul Rooster from SpaceX signed it. Bill Clancy signed it. And various other people with illegible signatures have signed it. You even have Rick Tomlinson. Yeah, well, that's what happens. Anyway, here we have a poster. It is a unique item. Okay. There is nothing like it in the world except for the other one, which we keep as in the Mars Society forever. Okay. So I'm going to auction this off. Who here will give $100 for this? Okay, we have a bid from Chris Martins, I think. Okay, for $100. Anyone willing to give $120? You don't want Chris Martins to get this for $100. Someone's got to bid 120 to this. 120. You gonna let her take it for 120, Chris? Anyone willing to give 140? 140. Chris Martins is doing 140, right? Okay, so Chris has got 140. Anyone willing to do 160? 160. Over there. Okay, is that K? K, 160. Anyone willing to do 180? Chris is doing 180. Anyone willing to do $200? $200. $200. What? Did you say 200? No, we did not. I thought, I'm sure you said that. He's gonna. No? Okay. Looks like 180. 200. All right. Anyone willing to do 220? 220. 220. Anyone willing to do 240? I'm liking this. All right. Once $300. Oh well. The okay, 300 going once, twice. What? $500. All right, do I hear $1,000? Do I hear $1,000? Someone bid $1,000 for this poster? Around 600. What? Okay, we hear 600. Do I hear 700? I hear 700. Do I hear $700? We're going to let Chris get this for $600? This doesn't make any sense. Once, twice, 3 times. Sold to Chris Martins for $600. Okay, thank you. All right, so that pretty much winds it up for tonight. Hope to see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. for the final set of plenaries in the morning. See you then.
That was fun. I want to go see the movie. Nobody.
I'm gonna, maybe Kenneth's gonna go.
Huh? You guys don't want to see Mars? Why not? They have a telescope upstairs. Let me double check. Oh, let me double check.
Hey, pleasure. Yeah.
Excuse me, everybody. There are 2 people that donated envelopes. We need a little bit more information from you. Ronald Hattie, and Belvisi Barbara Belvisi. We need a little bit more information from you.
I just walk around and say,
Yeah, I wrote it on the paper.
Follow me.
Hey, dude.
Why you smiling?
I'm having fun.
You're having class over here?
I'm having fun. We kill this
Is
feed.
everything working?
Yeah, everything's great.